If your photos look random, it's because your exposure is random. In the next few minutes, I'll go through a simple but technical process on the exposure triangle that you can try and master your manual photos on your next shoot. My name's Shelby. My main goal is to make videos for beginners who are ready to get serious about their photography. So let's explain something simple, the exposure triangle. The exposure triangle consists of ISO, aperture, and your shutter speed. This is an equation. So think about it. They're all baked into this one equation that equals a proper exposure, right? So if you change one value in that equation, one of the other values must go up or go down. So always keep that in mind. Let's start with aperture. Aperture decides how much of your scene is in focus. Think of depth control. And remember, aperture is calculated as a fraction. So the bigger the number, the smaller the hole, and the little or less light is being left in, right? And the true is for the opposite. The smaller the number, more light is being let in, more your scene or less of your scene is in focus. I'm sorry. A small number like f2.8, shallow depth of field. So this is for portraits when you see that nice blurry, soft background, but the subject is in focus. And now when you go to a bigger number like f8 or f16, think of seeing everything, right? I want everything in focus, landscape photography, building photography, things of that nature. So just some quick tips. If you're shooting portraits, think of f2.8 or small aperture as you can get as possible. And if you're shooting landscapes, think of f8 or greater. Just something to consider. You also have to think about your focal length. So if you're realizing that you're at the proper aperture and it's still not as crisp as you want, stop back 1 or 2 lengths distance-wise. So just take a few steps forward or take a few steps back, and that'll get you the crispness that you need. Now let's talk about shutter. Shutter freezes motion. So you want to decide if you want to freeze that motion or you want a little blur. The faster the shutter speed, the crisper the motion. The slower the shutter speed, you're going to catch some of that motion in action, therefore causing a blur. I like to think of shutter speed as a water spigot, right? Think if you're going to get water from the refrigerator. You press that button with your cup, a little squirt will come out. Think of that as a fast shutter speed, right? Versus you press that button, you hold it to fill up the cup. That's a slower shutter speed. You're opening that shutter a little longer, allowing more light and more motion to be captured in that frame. So just some quick recipes. If you're just doing casual photography, capturing people walking, just want to capture things in the moment, a shutter speed of 1/250 is perfect enough. But if you're here on the lake trying to capture boats, or you're doing if you're doing wildlife photography, you want to capture a bird in action, bump that shutter speed up to a minimum of 500, and that'll capture the motion in action for you. On my phone. Now, if you're getting accidental blur, stop that shutter speed up 1 or 2 stops, and that'll give you where you need to be. Don't get too crazy with it by turning the dial, trying to figure out the settings. Just go one at a time, because remember, this is an equation, right? So if you change one value, you have to go back and change that other value in a similar fashion, right? Now let's talk ISO, the big, scary 3-letter acronym. Every photographer seems to be scared of ISO. All you hear is make sure your ISO is as low as possible. That's fine, right? But we want to get creative here. So your ISO adds digital noise to your frame depending on how bright it is, right? And that digital noise comes from the way ISO works. ISO pretty much calculates the brightness digitally in your image as you're looking through your viewfinder or the image is coming through the sensor. So there may be some digital noise because, like here in the background with these clouds, it's going to try to computate an object, right? And once it realizes there's nothing there, there's going to be some leftover noise from that computation, right? That's where you get that high grain from in your ISO. So just some simple tips. I sound like everyone else, but keep that ISO as low as possible. And if you're shooting out here in the daylight like I am, make sure you cap it at around 800. If you're shooting indoors, cap it at 3200, but remember, there will be some grain in that photo. So you have to go back to the other 2 elements of the equation, right? It's either your shutter speed or your aperture, and you have to adjust those values. So be careful with that. I recommend, if you're getting a lot of noise while you're shooting at a high ISO, stop that aperture down 1, meaning close that hole up a little bit and let in a little less light, and that should take away some of that digital noise or that grain in your photo. Be sure to pay attention to your histogram when we're talking ISO. You just want to make sure that your histogram doesn't touch the left or the right side of that graph. That's all you need to know. The points and troughs in the graph can be wherever they need to be for now, unless you want to get super technical into it, but general terms speaking, if you're looking at your histogram for your exposure, just make sure that graph isn't touching either side of your box there. And that's it, guys. Aperture for the look, shutter for the motion, and ISO to fill in the gaps. If this video helped you out, give me a like and subscribe. I make one weekly in the field landscape or architectural video. I'll see you there.